So, I'd like to talk today about how to pick the best domain name for your business. This is a question that was raised recently in the Click Millionaires private forum, and it comes up a lot in a lot of different contexts. In this case, it was our member Michael Shoren from the Upper Peninsula in Michigan. I guess it's quite cold there this time of year, and he's been noodling about how to pick not just any domain name, but to optimize the domain name that he's picking for his new business. And I think it's a good question because the name of your business, obviously, it's a key to your branding. And these days, it's not just key for the human impression of your business, but also for what the search engines think of your business. And the search engines can bring you lots of free traffic. So those two overlapping interests, the human concern and the search engine concern, combine to make domain name selection probably even more important than it ever was even before, say, in the last 5 or 10 years. So, how do you do this? How can you pick the best domain name for your business? Well, it's really up to you, and it's an artistic choice as much as a practical one. But let me talk about some of the factors that I think about and that I think are important, and also give you some techniques for being objective about the domain names that you pick so that your business can succeed in the easiest way possible. So first of all, as I said, there are two types of concerns. There are the human concerns, what human visitors think about your domain name, and then there are what search engines think about your domain name. So for humans, you want the domain name to be memorable. It's that simple. You want a domain name that's easy to spell, which means it's probably short, and one that they can remember. That's why you see big businesses using short words that may not even have anything to do with their business. The classic example, of course, Amazon.com. 10, 15 years ago, Amazon meant a really big river in South America. It had nothing to do with books. But Amazon has succeeded in branding it that now most of the folks I know, if you say Amazon, they think books, not river, because very few of us spend time in South America. Apologies to those of you who are watching in South America, of course. At least here in the States, Amazon now has taken on a life of its own. It's short, it's a word that people already knew how to spell, and of course Amazon got the .com version of that name as well. So very tight, very easy to remember, and their marketing and success has imbued it with its own meaning. Now today it's not going to be quite as easy for you to find a domain name that's as easy to spell, as short, available in .com, and especially if you're trying to put in keywords, which is one of the key factors for having search engines like the domain name as well. But I think what you need to do these days is look at combinations of words that mean something, because you're not going to get something short. So you're probably going to have to use 2 or even 3 words, but make sure that your keywords are in there so that it makes most likely a phrase that's interesting and that matches the mental map that your target audience is going to have. They're going to be interested in that because it will help them remember it. So for example, this show I broadcast at scottfoxshow.com. Now that was available, right? There are not a lot of other Scott Foxes doing shows, it turns out, so I got that one easily. scottfoxshow.com. But it also means that for you as a human viewer and listener and potential customer of mine, you can remember it, scottfoxshow.com. So that's where I'd start. And by the way, .com. You want to go with .com. I know .net and .info and .biz, those are all interesting, but the .coms really run the world. It's what people think of most naturally. If you are running perhaps a nonprofit, you might get away with .org. Obviously, if you're a school, it'll be .edu. And if you're not in the States, maybe you can do .fr if you're in France, or .co.uk if you're in England, and so forth. It might be a little different. But at least for American viewers, you'd want the .com. And even in those other markets, you should get the .com if you can, because hopefully your business expands and it targets U.S. customers as well. Okay, second part of this. Let's talk about search engines. How can the search engines get the most value out of your domain name? How do you pick a domain name most interesting to the search engines? Well, in this part of the discussion, you want to think about keywords. Domain names are increasingly important in search engine rankings simply for the fact that search engine rankings are driven largely by the keywords that you have on your page. Search engine spiders and robots and crawlers, when they come to your page, they don't really read it like a human does. They don't really know what the words mean in the sense of being conscious and understanding it. They're really doing pattern matching. So if they look at your page and your keyword is wristwatches, and you've got wristwatches in the title tags and the meta tags and the keywords, you mention it a couple times in the titles, maybe your JPEGs and PNG files, your images have the word wristwatches in them, the search engine is going to start to categorize your site in the wristwatch section, which is where you want to be to attract free traffic from customers who are searching for information about wristwatches on Google, Yahoo, Bing, and the other search engines. So imagine how much even more powerful it will be if your domain name includes wristwatches in the domain name itself. So if I started a wristwatch site, mine might be, for example, scottswristwatches.com. Now you've got Scott just to differentiate it because, of course, wristwatches itself is taken. Wristwatches is a real word. I'm sure it's taken in .com, .info, .biz, .everything. But if you differentiate it with a modifier like scottswristwatches.com, you'll have a chance of getting it. Perhaps even better is to use a keyword that appeals to both the search engines and the humans who are making the searches. So you might use a word like cheap or luxury or discount, something that a person might be searching for on Google or Yahoo or Bing when they're adding that to their search. If they just search for wristwatches, they're liable to be overwhelmed with listings, right? So they're likely to add a modifier to that, such as discount or sale or luxury or Swiss, words that apply to wristwatches. And that will automatically pre-configure your customer's thinking. They're already searching for discount Swiss wristwatches. And if your website is discountswisswristwatches.com, you're going to have a leg up on the competition pretty clearly. Now, how do you pick those keywords? Well, here's where keyword research comes in. There are a bunch of free tools like wordtracker.com and keyword tools of all sorts that you can find by Googling them. But I actually like to start the most inexpensive. That's my game here. I'm Scott Fox. I'm an entrepreneurial author, and I like to recommend the things that are inexpensive for you. It's easy to spend money, and everybody wants you to, but I'd start with the free stuff. Google offers two tools, the Google Traffic Estimator Sandbox and the Google Keyword Tool External. You can Google both of those and find them online, of course, but you can put in different keywords there and find out which actually have the most searches already. So, for example, continue the example I gave a minute ago, if you were going to do scottswisswristwatches.com, you might find out when you put in Swiss and maybe you try German and English and American, it turns out that maybe Canadian wristwatches are the thing these days, or Japanese. And if you do the research and compare them, you might find that, just in theory, Japanese wristwatches have 5 times as many customers searching on those phrases as Swiss does. So maybe the idea of Swiss wristwatches is outdated and your keyword should be more around Japanese. That might be helpful to you. So those are my thoughts for you on how to pick a great domain name. Put together the human and the search engine concerns so that they overlap. Use your keywords in the appropriate places. Strive to be the shortest, most concise, most memorable, but keyword-rich domain name that you can, and ideally in .com as well. That's how I pick domain names, and that's how I think you should too. Now, in a future episode, I'll talk about how to test different domain names as well. There are inexpensive ways to test, so if you come up with 10 or 15 variables, I'll teach you how to test them inexpensively as well. So that's today's lecture. This is the Scott Fox Show. We're going to be taking questions here in just a minute too. Thanks for visiting at scottfoxshow.com, and we'll be taking questions live in the chat room here at scottfoxshow.com. Head over to ustream.tv and sign up for a free account, and I'll be taking your questions live in just a minute.